Hey guys, in chemistry, we're going to kind of continue exploring all of these new terms and vocab words that we keep running into. And I want to introduce you guys to the idea of physical and chemical properties, which you may have heard of in middle school. But we're going to kind of dig deeper and talk about um, every type of matter has different properties, and all those properties or characteristics or traits can be divided into two categories, either physical or chemical. And just for review, a property is a description of an object. So this tree, you can see it's green, it's tall. These are physical properties. We can see them. Now, there's also a chemical property, which is that this tree is flammable. So if it's struck by lightning, it can catch fire and burn. That's a type of chemical property. Um, so the definition of a physical property is any property of matter that can be observed or measured without changing the identity of the matter. So um, I can observe that a pencil is yellow. I can observe that sandpaper is rough, and measuring those things or observing them doesn't change them. So those are physical properties. There are a lot of everyday pretty familiar examples of physical properties that you guys have probably heard of before. And you do have to take notes on all of this. So some physical properties include color, volume, which is how much space something takes up, mass, smell or odor, density, taste, shape, texture, hardness, luster, which is kind of how shiny it is, the state of matter, so whether it's a solid, a liquid, a gas, or a plasma, and then the boiling point, freezing point, and melting point. Those are all physical properties, and I can measure them and not change what the substance is. There are some that are a little less familiar to most of us. The first one is conductivity, which is the ability to carry heat or electricity. You guys intuitively know what some conductors are. For example, you know not to stick, hopefully, like a metal fork or knife in the toaster because metal conducts electricity and you could blow a fuse or get electrocuted. Um, we also know that we don't want to stand in like a lake or a pond if there's a lightning storm because water is a good conductor. It has high conductivity. Um, but if we were to touch something electrical with cloth or plastic, we know that those are poor conductors of heat and electricity, and so we'd be less likely to be hurt or killed. There's also viscosity, and that term refers to how easily a liquid flows. So if I'm pouring myself a glass of water or Monster Energy drink or coffee, those liquids flow pretty easily and quickly. But if I am putting maple syrup or honey on my pancakes, those liquids have a high viscosity, which means they don't flow quickly or easily. Um, the term malleability means how easily something can be formed or molded or its shape can be changed. So if I took a hammer to a piece of iron or steel, I probably would not be able to change its shape much. But if I took a piece of aluminum and beat it with a hammer, I could actually eventually flatten that aluminum into a thin sheet of metal because it's very malleable. Solubility is whether or not you can dissolve something in water. So if I dissolve salt or sugar in water, that doesn't change its properties. It's still salt, it's still sugar. But things that are easily dissolved are highly soluble. There's also magnetism, so whether or not something is attracted by a magnetic force. And there are more examples of physical properties, but we just can't go over all of them. So these are the terms I'd like you to know and be familiar with. And then next up is chemical properties. So a chemical property is a property of matter that describes a substance based on its ability to change into a new substance, which means its ability to react with other things and go through a chemical transformation. Um, Again, there are more examples than this, but something's flammability or combustibility is its ability to catch fire or explode. Um, Something's radioactivity is how quickly it's going through radioactive decay or giving off radiation. There's also reactivity. So how easily does something react with other substances? How likely is it to go through a chemical change? Corrosion is how matter reacts with air and causes different reactions. Like rusting is the meeting of oxygen and iron, and it creates a chemical reaction that is rust. If you leave an apple or a banana outside of their peel, they'll rot. That's an example of those materials reacting with oxygen and corroding. And there are a few other ways that can happen. There's also the pH level, or how acidic or basic something is. And we'll talk about all these in more detail coming up. But the big takeaways here are physical properties mean there's no change in the substance. So if I cut a cake in half, it's still a cake, right? Chemical properties means there has to be, it's how they chemically react with other things. It's how they change themselves into a new substance. So for example, if I burn a log in a campfire, it's really flammable. That's a chemical property. So it's chemically transformed into ash, heat, and light, and it cannot be turned back into a log. Similarly, if I were to bake a cake and mix the flour and the sugar and the eggs, yada yada, and bake it with heat, it would have transformed into different substance. I couldn't turn the cake back into the eggs and flour and sugar and other ingredients. All right, so as we go through this, we'll kind of review all this stuff together, but please make sure you have good notes from this video for the upcoming activities. And that's it. Have a great day. Thank you.